There are moments you don't realize are significant until they echo back years later. A glance, a laugh, a whisper behind your back. I remember the first time I met Allison's best friend, Kayla. She was all teeth and confidence, the kind of woman who walked into a room like the room owed her something. I was pouring wine into Allison's glass at the time, some quiet dinner gathering she'd roped me into after we moved into our first apartment. Kayla looked me up and down like I was a shelf in a bargain store. Later that night, I overheard her say it to Allison when she thought I was in the kitchen. "He's sweet," she said, dragging the word like it was a flaw. "But boring. He's too boring for you, babe." I wish I could tell you it didn't sting, that I shrugged it off. But truthfully, I stood behind the fridge door longer than I needed to, letting the cold hum fill my ears while the words rooted themselves in my chest. Boring. That was the start of the unraveling, I think. Not that one word caused it all, but that it was the first time I truly felt like an outsider in my own relationship. At first, I chalked it up to insecurity. I was building a software company from scratch. Quiet, obsessive work. Not glamorous. Allison, on the other hand, was blossoming in her marketing career, photo shoots, influencer brunches, rooftop champagne with her agency friends. Kayla always seemed to be around. She moved like she owned the place, her words sugar-laced knives. And Allison soaked it in. "She's just blunt," Allison would say. "That's how she is with everyone." "Yeah," I'd murmur, "just not with you." We fought about her a couple of times. Not full-on shouting matches, but those under-the-skin, tension-filled arguments that leave you both cold afterward. The kind where you end up lying back to back in bed, neither wanting to touch the other first. But I stayed. I showed up. Birthdays, work events, even Kayla's engagement party, before that imploded 6 months later. I kept being the steady one. The boring one, I guess. The guy who remembered anniversaries, who booked dinner reservations, who made sure there was gas in her car during winter. And I guess somewhere in all that effort, I stopped seeing how far apart we drifted. The first message Kayla ever sent me, after the divorce, came on a Thursday. "Hey, just saw your name in that Forbes piece. Wow, proud of you." I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then I locked my phone and didn't reply. That message was followed by another 2 weeks later. "You always were so grounded. Noticed you haven't replied. Hope you're doing well." I still didn't answer. Not because I hated her. I'd grown past that. It was more like she didn't exist in the world I was rebuilding. She had no place in it anymore. But man, I remembered everything. Every laugh she had at my expense. Every time she nudged Allison and gave her that look, like I was a stray dog following them around. They had no idea I was listening most of the time. They thought I was too busy coding or reading or being, well, boring. I remember the night it truly changed, the pivot point. Allison came home tipsy from Kayla's birthday dinner. She kicked off her heels, tossed her purse onto the kitchen counter like it owed her something, and laughed. She said you'd never last, she giggled. That you'd burn out before 30. Kayla said that. "Don't take it personally, babe. She just doesn't get you." I nodded, but I took it personally. And somewhere deep inside, I promised myself something. I wasn't going to prove her wrong. I was going to prove me right. So I worked. I worked like a man possessed. 12-hour days turned into 16. I built systems no one else could see. I took risks they couldn't understand. And slowly, quietly, I made something real. My company grew. Investors called. People started saying my name in rooms I'd never entered. Meanwhile, Allison grew more distant. She missed calls. Forgot things. Her eyes didn't light up when I walked in anymore. And the worst part? I kept forgiving it. I kept pretending it was just a phase. The final straw wasn't some dramatic affair or heated confrontation. It was small, like most endings are. I came home late one night with takeout. Her favorite. She wasn't there. Her phone was off. And I waited until 2 a.m. before I gave up. She came in around 3, perfume lingering, eyes glassy. No explanation. Just sleep, she mumbled. And I stood there in the doorway to our bedroom, holding the food, realizing she wasn't mine anymore. We divorced quietly. No fireworks. No courtroom drama. She got the apartment. I walked away with my name. And not even a month later, Kayla messaged me again. "Thinking about you today. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you ever want to talk." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I was already building something far greater than they ever imagined. I didn't think much about Kayla at first. She was noise in the background, like static on an old radio station you didn't care to fix. But after the third message, I muted her number. Not blocked, just silent. I didn't need to be cruel. I just wasn't interested in revisiting a world that had once laughed in my face. Allison and I hadn't spoken since the paperwork was finalized. We'd been together 5 years, married for 3. And when it ended like an elevator cable snapping. No slow descent, just a jolt and then a drop. I think what haunted me most wasn't what she did, but how casual it all seemed. Like it had been decided months before. Like she'd been rehearsing the distance while I was still showing up with coffee and good intentions. The first time I saw her after the divorce, it was on a screen. An ad for a podcast she was co-hosting. Something about life after corporate. She looked radiant, polished, surrounded by women who all looked like they had a PR firm on speed dial. And there, in the corner, was Kayla, laughing, smirking. I clicked out of it. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding from scratch. Not emotionally, but professionally. The company I'd founded just got acquired by a firm in the Valley. A quiet deal. Low publicity, high payout. I didn't take the windfall and run, though. I reinvested. Launched a new project. Brought in a small team. No noise. Just progress. And then, a week after that deal hit the back end of tech blogs, Kayla messaged again. Congrats on the new project. You always had that quiet brilliance. Proud of you. She was still trying to play it casual, like we'd ever had something worth preserving. Like she hadn't once told a room full of women I was a walking snooze button. I wondered if she remembered that moment. The wine bar. Her leaning in and saying, if you want to be miserable and safe, date someone like him. If you want to live, go find someone with teeth. She laughed after she said it. Allison laughed too. I pretended not to hear. That night, I washed their dishes and took out the trash. A perfect gentleman. A boring one. Funny how memory works, isn't it? The things you don't fight for at the time, they fester. They grow teeth of their own. I was in Denver a few months later, speaking at a panel on ethical tech innovation, something I never thought I'd be invited to, let alone headline. I wore the same watch Allison once said looked too mature for someone my age. The room was full, the applause honest. Afterward, I stepped outside, and there she was, Kayla. She had a lanyard, some pass. I guess she'd found a way in. She looked thinner, less sharp, and for the first time, unsure of herself. Hey, she said, brushing her hair behind her ear like we were old friends. I gave a polite nod. You were incredible in there, she added, her voice soft. Really? I mean, I always knew you were smart, but this is different. Thanks. An awkward pause stretched between us. She shifted her weight. You know, I used to think you were boring, she admitted, chuckling nervously. I remember, I said evenly. She bit her lip. I was wrong. You're not boring. You're just steady. Grounded. That's rare. I wanted to tell her that steady men build empires. That boring men bury the past in spreadsheets and trust funds. But I didn't. I just said, I know. She looked at me like she wanted more. Maybe an apology. Maybe a door left open. Instead, I said, I've got a call in 5 minutes, and walked away. That night, I lay in my hotel room staring at the city lights. And I felt it. Not vindication. Not revenge. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes from no longer needing to be understood by people who once mocked you. Allison messaged me a month later. Her podcast had been canceled. The agency that sponsored it folded. She wanted to catch up, maybe grab coffee. I never replied. Kayla kept sending messages too. Little ones. Just read about your nonprofit. So inspiring. You always had such a kind heart. I'd love to pick your brain sometime. Each one, like a pebble thrown into a still lake. Harmless. But I knew better now. See, people like Kayla never expected men like me to rise quietly. They mistake silence for weakness. But the truth is, silence is power, refined. And I wasn't the same man anymore. I had nothing to prove to them. Because the man they laughed at, he built something bigger than their jokes. He learned to be alone, to be still. And in that stillness, he found strength. And somewhere out there, they watch. They scroll. They wonder what it would have been like if they'd stayed, if they'd seen it sooner, if they'd just paused their laughter long enough to listen. But I don't wonder. I already lived that version. And I walked away from it, one step at a time. Time has a funny way of softening things. But it never quite erases. Some wounds scar. Others, they calcify into reminders. Not pain exactly, just presence. You learn to live alongside it. It's been 4 years now. My company went public last year. We rang the bell on Wall Street, and I stood in a suit I'd never have bought back then, flanked by a team I trust, not because they flatter me, but because they've bled beside me building this thing. The media called me a quiet disruptor. I like that. Quiet. There's dignity in that. The day after the IPO, I got a message. It was Kayla again. This time it just said, "You were never boring." I just didn't understand real strength. She attached a photo. It was old. From Allison's birthday, maybe 5 years back. I was pouring wine, like always. Wearing that blue sweater Allison once told me looked too safe. Kayla was in the background, laughing. I didn't reply. I just stared at the photo a while. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel warmth either. Just clarity. Like I was watching someone else's life. And maybe I was. A week later, I got another message. She said she'd left the agency world. That she'd burned out. That she remembered the dinners I used to make when she came over to crash after long work nights. She said I always made space feel safe. I didn't answer. There was nothing cruel in it. I just didn't see the point. People change, sure. But some people only show up when the lights are already on. Allison reached out too. Once. A long email. She said she missed who we were before everything got complicated. She said she finally understood that love isn't measured by excitement, but by presence. She hoped I'd found someone who saw me clearly. I didn't write back, but I did read it. Twice. And maybe she meant it. Maybe Kayla did too. But it's not my job anymore to be their lesson. That's the part no one tells you after betrayal. Healing isn't about confrontation. It's about choosing not to carry what broke you. Not even to prove a point. Just because peace is heavier when you keep dragging the past behind it. These days, I live quietly. No high-rise. No endless travel. I have a home that smells like cedar and always has fresh coffee. There's a golden retriever named Elmo who waits at the door. And sometimes, I teach workshops on resilience. Not the flashy kind, but the real kind. The I built my life back one line of code at a time kind. People ask about my past sometimes. I tell them the truth, but only the parts that matter. That I was married once. That I wasn't seen. That I made peace with that and kept building anyway. And every so often, I get a new message from Kayla. The words change, but the rhythm stays the same. Like she's trying to rewrite our history from the outside. But history doesn't change. It just grows quiet. She laughed behind my back once. Thought I was a placeholder, a cautionary tale in a cocktail dress circle. Now she scrolls through headlines and sees my name tied to things that last. And she wonders, maybe in the soft hours of night, what it would have been like to be part of it. To have stayed. To have seen past her own reflection long enough to really see someone else. But I don't wonder anymore. I lived that chapter. I closed the book. And now? Now I write new ones. Quietly. Steadily. Unapologetically.